Hello, guys. So I'm Maria. Welcome to the second task of our Classtime Academy for English language teachers. We are here today with Valentine. Hi, Val, from Classtime as
Hello.
well, and with Scott Houston from Educators Cooperative. Hi, Scott.
Hello, everyone. It's good to be here.
So first, I would like to thank all the engagement we got in the first task. We had a lot of feedback, some questions as well that we're going to go over here. That's why Scott is here today as well. Other than being an educational consultant, he also has created a lot of question sets for our public library. So we'll be going over that. Scott, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Absolutely. My name's Scott Houston. I've been in education now for coming up on 30 years. And I started off in the middle school level, and I have taught all subjects and have moved up to the high school. So I have experience there. And currently I work with several districts on everything from SBAC math prep to high stakes testing for English. I write test questions for various districts. So that's pretty much my background and why I've written so many question sets for class time.
Absolutely, and I can just second that. There's no one better and that can go deeper with the question types on class time. So I'm extremely thankful to have you on this video as well, Scott. I think it will be highly beneficial for all the educators out there to learn from your deep expertise. I've seen you many times live in action, so I think we'll have a very insightful 15 to 20 minutes ahead of us.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Okay, should we jump to the first question then?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, so first, I'm very sorry if I'm pronouncing your name incorrect, but Alessandra is asking, how can I create diverse English tests? So Scott is gonna...
The first thing you want to do is you want to be able to have like various frames in all sorts of different types of themes. So if you want to talk about like the overall theme of a story, or if you want to say, what's the point? Then you want to have like 5 or 6 different kinds of frames that you can put to ask those questions. So like, what's the main idea? What are the 2 main ideas? And then that way you can go into more of a checkbox situation. You can actually break it down into paragraphs and say, look at the first 4 paragraphs. What's the main idea in each paragraph? So that's the first thing you want to be able to do, is have a place where you can get a bunch of different frames that will target the exact type of comprehension you want to go after. When it comes to characterization, you can apply the not the checkbox, but the categorizer format, and put in the 4 different characters, and then put some things up on top that you can attribute to those characters, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can have highlightable text where you're like, where within the story is this character showing that they have remorse for what they did? And then that way you can go straight into highlightable text, and you're still dealing with characterization because you're showing how this person is feeling that way within the text. So the first thing is always get away from the concept of multiple choice and short answer for all of your things. Whenever I build a question set, the first thing that comes to my mind is I want to have about 7 or 8 questions per passage. I find once I get to like 9 or 10 questions, it's kind of repeating itself. The passages should be short when it comes to these, because if the passages are overly long, you just don't get as much bang for your buck. Class time works best in short, interactive, quick texts. So, you know, we're talking about 1,000 words, maybe 1,500 at most. And then saying to yourself, okay, I want to have 8 questions. I want to have 6 different question types. And then you just kind of like fill it out from there. So that's the first thing you want to be able to do, is figure out where these types of question sets can go once you've decided on the 6 you're going to use. And with the audio feature, that really opens up the world of kinder and first grade more than it ever
Mm-hmm.
had before, because if you had non-readers, they couldn't understand what was going on. So if you're training in English, you can now read it to them if they understand orally better, or you can have translations if you want to go that way too, in case someone's not quite sure and they want to match up the home language to the English that's on the page so that they can kind of read as they go through. So these are ways to really build that diverse English test. Those are some of the first things you want to think of.
Mm-hmm. So I understood that,
Mm-hmm.
the question types are definitely a big differentiator in terms of how you can build those different frames. The audio feature, can you show us a few examples of how you've done that so that our audience also understands how you approach this, right? So I think it's really helpful to understand that there is a strategy to how you approach this. You think about, for a reading passage, how long it should be. You want to make sure it has 6 to 9 questions. You really want to make sure you leverage different types of question sets. Question types, yeah. So can we get you on the screen? Here we go. Maybe you can walk us through a few thoughts on that and show us how it's done.
Yeah, so this is language arts for fictional text that we're taking a look at here. And so one of the things I wanted to be able to do is, you'll notice here I've got true and false. I've got short answer. We've got checkbox, select all that apply, categorizer. So you see right off the bat, we have got tons of different kinds of question types. So that's number one. And then you start saying to yourself, okay, well, where do I get my question stems from? So I'm in California, and we have a test called the SBAC. And the SBAC has this framework that they put out that lists all the different ways that they might ask the kinds of questions that you would find in the high stakes testing. So I take a lot of those as suggestions. Sometimes I use them, sometimes I don't, but I just wanted to be able to have them for frames, right? So, like, for example, put the events of the story in order, no matter what kind of text you have, whether it be fictional or informative. You can just go ahead and create these where you have them put the steps.
Disorder.
Yeah. And I find a lot of kids struggle with this, both for the tech aspect, but just even being able to identify what goes first. And when they get better at this, they actually get better at retelling the text. One of the things we ask kids to do for comprehension is to read a story and then tell us what was in the story. This actually helps them put it in a more sophisticated order when they explain it, so they get better at that particular skill. And then you will see things like, which sentences from the text best describes how Emily feels about freckles? Select all that apply. And so we could put stuff like this in. And you notice with the questions, I like to actually put in the pictures or GIFs that really kind of play with the theme of whatever we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the things is, like, you'll notice I've got the 8 questions. I've got vocabulary involved. In this particular case, I had characterization. And I also like to put in the standard. So, like, you'll notice here, I've got the standard listed right here at the bottom.
Mm-hmm. And for users who haven't been using Classtime very recently, or have been, using Classtime for a longer period of time and haven't looked into the reports, we recently launched a new export type where if you download the spreadsheet, there's a second tab which will also show you the performance per standard throughout all the questions, right? So if you have a specific standard you're optimizing for, you will see not only by question, but also by standard how every student performed. So this is obviously something that's very relevant in the States, less internationally, but these kind of standards exist in various countries. We're continuously adding new ones. And so that's something we can definitely do. And that helps, right, to understand how to build these kind of diverse English tests and test for different competencies and skills.
Absolutely. And so when the question is, how can I create diverse English tests? That's another thing, have a diversity of the standards you're targeting. have your vocabulary, have your characterization, have your central idea, like blend those all in. And in some cases, one of the great things you can also do on Classtime is you can insert video. So you can do a compare and contrast between the text and the video. And then checkboxes work. I mean, the categorizer works great for that, because you can say which facts were present in the video, which facts were present in the text, and then which were present in both. So like for this one, the myth of Daedalus and Icarus that we have up here right now. So said, how does the text differ from the video? And so you see right here, we have the video ready for the kids to watch. And this right here is straight out of the frame from the high stakes testing. And then another thing you can do is put in like a part A and a part B. So what inference can be made about Daedalus's relationship with Icarus? And then in part B, it's like now we have the highlight text that you can put in for that to show that they know how to go into text and find it.
Awesome.
So once again, you just kind of look through this and you see there's all sorts of different types of questions that you put into these. And anytime you look up reading comprehension, like if you go first grade reading comprehension into the Classtime search window, you will find all of these set up this way. Some of my earlier work, however, did not have the standards in it, but all of my later work does.
Yeah, and you can find all of them in our public library. Especially if you research for Scott Houston, you already find a lot of question sets. Okay, so the second one, continue with the question type theme, right? So what are the best question types for reading and writing tests?
The answer to that question is just about anything. All of the question sets can work so well in whatever you're trying to jump into. So let me give an example. Like when people think of close reading, right? They think of a blank spot within some text, and then they put the words into that text. And it's usually like a drag and drop format, or it's select the right word. But there are so many different ways we can play with this concept in Classtime that people don't necessarily think about. So here's an example of a vocabulary close from 4th grade, right? So we got like true or false. The word continents would be a good fit for blank space 1. So it starts off really simple. Imagine being so far out in space that the continents look like green and brown shapes. So kids would say, yes, that sounds like it would fit very well into the text. So if your kids are just kind of beginning, you can do this true false format for your close. Then you go a little more advanced, and this is the typical thing you would see in any kind of test across the nation, right? So what would fit best in number 2? And you notice how I bolded that and italicized it. So that way when the kids see the question, they know exactly which one it fits. So now we've put it into what I would call the typical format, which is find the correct word to fill in the blank space. But then you go here and you could say, well, there could be more than one good word. So which word would particularly fit? Now, in these particular cases, I just took a piece of text and I slapped it in here with my copy. And then I just took out certain words and made my close from just various words. So if I wanted to target adjectives, I could. If I wanted to target nouns, I could. Whatever kind of writing or reading I wanted the kids to do, I can specifically target that particular type of vocabulary.
So the way you would do it is you would paste it, you would create your first question, right? You would paste the text there. You would pick all of you'd know how many gaps, so to speak, you want to create. Let's say 5. So you would already predefine the 5 gaps in that one text. And then you could just duplicate the question so that the description is already there with all 5 gaps. And then you just change the question type, change the question and the answer options. And then you have a fill in the gap type of question, but still leveraging all different question types and testing for different things at different difficulty levels, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome.
It is. It
And
is.
so when you look at like question 4, now we get to a kind of a higher level here, right? Put in a word for blank space 4 that makes sense. So now the teacher would have to look at the word that the kids chose and say, did what they chose make sense? There's nothing to choose from there. They just have to put in an answer that they like, right? Almost like an ad lib, but with strategy. And then the last one is match the correct word to its blank spot. So when they see something like this, you're looking at like questions like 5, 6, 7, and 8. And now the kids have to find blank space 5, 6, 7, and 8 and put the right words into it. So 5 different question types for a close read. Whenever you put something together like this, then you're like, I know I'm going to have 8 missing words, and I'm going to have 5 different question types, and this is a great way to set it up.
Okay. And for example, here to complete the question for writing, so for kids that are practicing writing, and there is like any question type that is very good to practice writing as well?
Well, the writing, you can go in a few different ways. So most of the time, the way they test writing, other than like, the big write the essays kinds of things, or, write a paragraph to answer the question, they usually go into editing. So in something like this, you will notice like this is all editing around verb tense. What's the correct verb tense? What verb tense should we put in? And you will see once again, there's just a variety of question types that you can go after. So you've got your short answer, your true and false. You've got your which of the sentences below should have hopped as the verb. And so you notice all the different types of sentence frames we have going here. There's very few repetitional frames. So whenever you're developing, whether it be writing or editing or reading, it's like try to vary the level of your writing frames, make them all different. And you don't have to do 10, do 5, do 4, do whatever fits your particular timeline. Yeah, so that's one of the things. And one of the things that really helps me as well is I go into the Khan Academy library, and they do a lot of repetition, but they give me the big ideas, they give me the words, and then I just rewrite what's there so that I have now this variety of not only frame, but of question type. But they give me my idea to start with.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
And when you say Khan Academy Library, you mean the ones that are already in our public library that you can find on Classtime, right?
Absolutely. You come over here, you see the Khan Academy, and I do this for math, for language arts. It's like take the framework that's provided to us and then just build upon it. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great to know. Also for our audience to know, we are currently reworking our entire content discovery. So within the next few weeks and months, you can expect significant improvements in finding Khan Academy questions, also in other languages than English, math questions, also better access to Scott Houston's content. So there will be a lot of improved ways to find the type of inspiration and content that will help you to either use as is or modify and build on, as Scott has just mentioned.
Absolutely. And by the way, if you like those clothes, if you type in Clorox, if you type in clothes, then you've got some of the different types of clothes of the different grade levels.
Oh, that's very good to know. Okay, so moving to the last one, the special one about the audio feature. So what are different ways you use the audio feature in tests?
I have some fun with it. Number one is I read on the very first question just the whole text. So that way the kids can hear it if I've got some non-readers. So for me, that is a very useful tool. But at the end of the story, I then read question 1, because I have to keep in mind that when I'm using the audio, that when the story's done, I still have to make sure the kids can read the question. So I read that question to them. And in some cases, if it's like multiple choice, I will also read them the responses. So I'll A, dog, B, cat, right? And then for like questions 2 through 5, then the audio is just the question and the responses. But I don't read the whole text again. So if they need to hear the text again, they can always just go back to question 1 and rehear it. So that's the first thing, is make sure that your class time session is available to even your non-readers, and that's one of the first things you can do to help them out. Then another thing I love to do with the audio feature is, especially during the remote learning, is spelling tests. So the way spelling has to sometimes be done online is they give you 4 spellings, 1 of which is right and 3 of which are bad, and it becomes a multiple choice. And as soon as you do that, you get a 25% chance of just kind of guessing it right? But with the audio feature, you can say the word pertinent, and then the kids would actually type in the word pertinent into the text. So that way you can look and see which words are spelled correctly.
Yeah.
So you can pull up full-on spelling tests on class time using the audio feature.
Okay.
So it's really for, just to summarize my own words, right? So the audio feature can really be used for very young kids that just can't read, right? So it doesn't have to be only English. It could be anything, right? That kids just can't read, but you can help them read by giving them a second audio line of what they're seeing. In the answer options, I've seen some of your great work. You don't even use text, right? So you'll read the question and maybe the story, but the answer options are then only images. So you would upload images as answer options so that they can also just use visual cues to understand the question. But then you can also, of course, use this for older students that are just learning English, for, so to speak, or any other language, right? And helping them with these kind of pronunciation tests, things that you read out, conversations, these kind of examples where you can also support reading, or students are able to read but are still learning a new language and trying to challenge them on different aspects of the new language.
Absolutely. And then one of the standards that we have to deal with are the speaking and listening standards. And so one of the great things you can also do is you can have a text, and then you can have a side audio with additional information, or almost like a different article entirely, but an audio one. And once again, just like you can with the video, you can now do a compare and contrast of what you heard in this separate text to what you read in this other text. So now you can have this kind of back and forth with it as well. And then last but not least with that is sometimes they just give like an audio reading of something, and then kids don't even get the words. They just answer the questions based on the audio reading, and then it's just a repeat of the question with the same audio on every single one that people can listen to on every question. So once again, the audio feature opens up so many different ways of playing around it. And I use Classtime a lot at the beginning of a session to kind of break the ice as an ice-breaking tool. And I will put music into the audio feature and play like a little name that tune, and then have people listen to it and say, what musical is this from? And, so you can have a lot of fun with that too.
Yeah, so fun is part of the learning progress, right? You also want to engage your students. So absolutely, that's a fantastic way to also, even for English language learners, to break the ice and engage them with a first fun, listen to the song type of question, right? To engage them and get their attention. So that's also even more creative, but very valid way of engaging and ultimately, right, supporting the learning progress of each student.
Yes. Now, unfortunately, there's not as much audio in the library, since audio is a fairly new within the last 6 months kind of thing. So I type in, when I add audio to a piece, I will type in like, reading comprehension audio. Exactly.
Yeah, it helps a lot.
Yeah, so I would recommend anyone who puts those into the library to throw those in there as well. And my biggest like recommendation for anyone who wants to create really diverse question sets and put the audio in there is just download a few of the ones that are already there and then copy the format and then put in your own text, and then you can use the frames that are already there. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You just need to go in and rewrite the questions and tweak them to fit whatever it is that you want them to do. And then, of course, change your, your answers to go with it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's all we have time today. So thank you for everyone who was watching first. Well, we'll be adding some question session for you to answer a couple of questions after this task as well, so we can move on to the last one that we'll have for this Classtime Academy learning program for English language teachers. I want to thank Scott very much. So thank you, Scott, for being here, for taking the time. You gave us a lot of tips. I'm sure all of the members of this academy are very happy and have a lot to work with right now. So thank you very much.
No, you're very welcome.
Absolutely, Scott. Thanks as always. Amazing. Thank you so much.
And thanks Val too for joining me. And we'll be seeing you very soon. Thank you.
We look forward to your comments and questions below, and make sure that we'll answer them in the future.
Yeah, for the final task, we will answer all the questions that we have from this one. So leave the comments. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.